The Silk Road was one of the most notorious online black markets in the history of the Internet, known not for trading spices or silk, as its name ironically suggested, but for dealing in illegal drugs, weapons, counterfeit documents, hacking services, and other forbidden commodities. Launched in February 2011 by Ross Ulbricht under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, the Silk Road was hosted on the Tor network, allowing users to browse and communicate anonymously. It accepted Bitcoin as its only form of payment, which at the time was still a relatively obscure digital currency. The combination of anonymity and untraceable payments provided by Tor and Bitcoin made Silk Road a haven for those wishing to operate outside the confines of traditional law and order. It rapidly gained attention from users around the world, both customers and sellers, and soon became the central hub for black market activity on the dark web. Ross Ulbricht's vision for the Silk Road was more philosophical than simply commercial. He claimed to be a libertarian and saw the site as an experiment in free markets, beyond the reach of governments. Ulbricht was reportedly inspired by Austrian economists and libertarian thinkers who criticized centralized economic systems and championed voluntary exchanges between consenting adults. To him, laws prohibiting drug use or trade were unjust restrictions on personal freedom. He considered the Silk Road a real-world testing ground for his political ideology. However, this idealistic vision was quickly overshadowed by the criminal realities of the platform. While the marketplace included sections for legal goods, digital art, and services, it was the sale of narcotics that exploded in popularity, drawing increasing scrutiny from law enforcement. Users on the Silk Road could browse an array of drug listings similar to how they would shop on eBay or Amazon. Listings included detailed descriptions, photographs, seller ratings, and reviews. Products ranged from marijuana and ecstasy to cocaine, heroin, LSD, and prescription drugs. Sellers competed for customer satisfaction by offering stealth shipping, professional packaging, and fast delivery. A review system allowed users to rate transactions, which created a degree of trust and accountability within the illegal ecosystem. Customers often praised the professionalism and efficiency of vendors, leading many to argue that Silk Road was safer than buying drugs on the street. Some even claimed that the platform reduced drug-related violence by eliminating physical confrontations and gang involvement. These arguments, however, were not sufficient to justify its existence in the eyes of the authorities. Behind the scenes, the US government and various international agencies began taking the Silk Road seriously. The anonymity provided by Tor and the pseudonymous nature of Bitcoin proved challenging, but not impossible to penetrate. Investigators began tracking shipments, identifying patterns, and even making undercover purchases on the site. They infiltrated forums, engaged with vendors, and gradually narrowed down the scope of their search. Ulbricht himself was an active participant on Silk Road forums, promoting the site and communicating with users under different aliases. He also used social media and internet forums to discuss cryptography, libertarianism, and economics. Eventually, investigators began to suspect that he might be involved with the creation or operation of Silk Road. In October 2013, after years of careful investigation, Ross Ulbricht was arrested at a public library in San Francisco. He was caught logged into the Silk Road admin account, which allowed authorities to seize control of the site and shut it down. The FBI confiscated over 170,000 bitcoins from the site's wallet, which were worth approximately $33 million at the time, but would later be worth billions as Bitcoin surged in value. Ulbricht was charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to commit computer hacking, and conspiracy to traffic narcotics. Additionally, There were allegations that he had attempted to hire hitmen to eliminate perceived threats to the Silk Road operation, although he was not convicted of murder for hire in the trial. In 2015, he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict sparked widespread debate about digital freedom, the role of government, and the future of cryptocurrencies. The downfall of Silk Road did not spell the end of online black markets. On the contrary, it inspired a series of successors, such as Silk Road 2.0, Alphabay, and Hansa Market. Each of these platforms tried to replicate or improve on the original, but most were eventually taken down by law enforcement. Alphabay, for instance, grew to surpass Silk Road in size and scope before being dismantled in 2017. These shutdowns were often accompanied by arrests, asset seizures, and warnings from authorities that the dark web is not as anonymous or untouchable as many believed. However, each takedown also led to more sophisticated methods by new market operators who learned from the failures of their predecessors. It became a digital arms race between dark web developers and law enforcement agencies, involving constant innovation, surveillance, and cybercrime tactics. The legacy of Silk Road is complex and deeply controversial. On one hand, it demonstrated the potential of blockchain technology and decentralized currencies. It showcased how anonymous networks could be used to build entirely new economic ecosystems that operated independently of state control. It also sparked important conversations about personal liberty, surveillance, and the right to privacy in the digital age. On the other hand, Silk Road facilitated the sale of harmful substances, some of which led to overdoses and deaths. It enabled criminal enterprises and exposed the vulnerabilities of law enforcement in the digital era. For many, it was a wake-up call about the challenges posed by emerging technologies when they fall into the wrong hands. Bitcoin itself received a flood of attention as a result of Silk Road's popularity. While early adopters saw it as a tool for decentralization and financial freedom, its association with illegal activities tarnished its reputation. Lawmakers and regulators around the world began calling for stricter rules on cryptocurrency exchanges, wallets, and user identification. This sparked the development of compliance-focused platforms and Know Your Customer (KYC) protocols. Meanwhile, the broader public became more aware of the potential and the dangers of cryptocurrencies. Ironically, Silk Road played a significant role in popularizing Bitcoin, which would later be embraced by major financial institutions, investors, and tech companies. It was a paradoxical evolution. A black market built on anonymity helped lay the foundation for the legitimization of a revolutionary financial technology. Ross Ulbricht remains a controversial figure to this day. Supporters argue that his sentence was disproportionately harsh and that he should not have been made an example of in the war on drugs. They point to the nonviolent nature of his crimes and his philosophical motivations. A movement advocating for his release gained traction online, with petitions, rallies, and public endorsements from figures in the tech and crypto communities. Opponents, however, see him as a criminal mastermind who knowingly created a platform for lawlessness and profited from the misery of others. They argue that his actions had real-world consequences and that his punishment was justified. The debate continues, and Ulbricht has filed multiple appeals in the hopes of one day regaining his freedom. The Silk Road case is now studied in universities, discussed in documentaries, and cited in policy papers on cybersecurity, law, and digital currencies. It raised critical questions about jurisdiction in cyberspace, the effectiveness of prohibition, and the ethical implications of technology. It also forced governments to adapt to new kinds of crime, pushing for the development of cybercrime units, international cooperation, and technical capabilities to monitor encrypted networks. It was a digital revolution, albeit a criminal one, that changed how law enforcement views the internet and its limitless potential for both good and harm. Despite its shutdown, the spirit of Silk Road lives on in various corners of the internet. The dark web continues to host marketplaces, forums, and communities that cater to those seeking anonymity and alternative systems. New technologies such as Monero, which offers even greater privacy than Bitcoin, are being adopted to avoid detection. At the same time, privacy advocates are warning against the erosion of civil liberties in the name of security. Governments are pushing for backdoors in encryption, surveillance powers, and digital tracking. The balance between freedom and control has become one of the defining issues of the 21st century, and the Silk Road stands as a pivotal moment in that ongoing struggle. In conclusion, the Silk Road was more than just a website. It was a manifestation of a new kind of ideology, one that challenged existing structures of power, commerce, and morality. It showed the possibilities of a decentralized world, but also its dangers. It forced society to confront the dark side of technological innovation and the blurred lines between liberty and lawlessness. Whether seen as a pioneer of digital freedom or a dangerous criminal operation, the Silk Road story is one that continues to echo through the corridors of the internet, reminding us that with great power comes great responsibility, even in the shadowy corners of cyberspace.